Hey, what's up guys? Luso here, Team D+ Gaming, and we have the Cryomancer here to give you his updated zombie deck profile. So this updates it to the September 1st ban list, and so I'll let him take it from here.
Alright guys, so if you want to see specific monster effects or have me explain them a little bit more, we've included a link in the description to go back to my previous video, but for right now I'm just going to talk about the changes that I made. So we're still going to run 3 copies of Zombie Master, 3 copies of Blue-Blooded Oni, because that there is your main XYZ spam deck engine there, and 3 copies of Goblin Zombie, because he's the searcher, gets the stuff to your hand. It's pretty good. I guess the first kind of minor change to the deck is I am only running 2 copies of Pyramid Turtle now. I'll explain more in depth on that a bit later, but we're just running 2 Pyramid Turtle now. One thing that the ban list really did to help zombies was they gave us back a Mezuki, so we got 2 of those now, which is fantastic. I love Mezuki. And then now I guess the first major change to the deck is 2 copies of Bone Crusher. This guy is my substitute for Trap Stun. His effect is that when he is special summoned by the effect of a zombie monster, you can destroy 1 spell or trap card your opponent controls. So it's essentially an MST, which can also punch people for 16. So really good card to have. And then now also, because you have 3 copies of Zombie Master, 3 copies of Blue-Blooded Oni, and 2 Mezuki, if you have this guy in the graveyard, you have 8 different cards which can special summon him and set off his effect. So if you get to use every one of these cards only once, you've used him essentially for 8 MSTs in addition to the actual spell card in the deck. So he's really good for getting around those pesky back row type problems, and he's just a good card to have. And also is a 16 beater, so it's not too bad. Then I got 2 copies of Endless Decay. Need to keep the big beater in the deck. This is your out to early game big problems you can't get over. But then now, because this new format promises to be a bit more helpful and happy for synchros, I'm running an extra Pain Painter now, who is essentially a Plaguespreader Zombie. But you have more synchros you can go into now, thanks to Judgment of the Light being out. So more synchros means more tuners, means Pain Painter. And another thing that I was really happy about with the ban list was we got 1 more Plaguespreader. So I'm running 2 copies of Plaguespreader now. It's just a fantastic tuner. It gets all your zombies, synchros out, and it's just a good card. Then to round out the monsters, I've got 2 copies of Tour Guide because you can still go into your Levier and save your Mezuki or your Plaguespreader from the Banished Zone, so he's a good card to have. Next, still running 2 copies of the Field Spell, Zombie World. Good card, sets up a lot of your plays unless you steal some of your opponent's stuff still. So in the realm where Monster Reborn is gone, you need this card to steal stuff out of your opponent's graveyard, but I'll get into a bit more on that later. And then 3 copies of Book of Life. This is essentially your Monster Reborn nowadays. Because we don't have the actual card, zombies get to revive themselves off of Book of Life. And you still get to run this guy at 3, so essentially it's a Monster Reborn for your deck only, which is pretty cool. Next, into the new kind of pseudo-staples, I run 1 Book of Moon, because it's essentially a trap card, but it's just a really good card to have. 1 Dark Hole, same as before. And because of the Bone Crushers, I only run 2 copies of MST, but you can obviously put that up to 3 if you really think you're going to face that much more back row than before. And then 1 Foolish Burial to get one of your 2 Mezukis now, or if you've already got your Mezuki play set up, you could pet your Blue-Blooded Oni in the grave, your Plaguespreader, or something like that. And then because now you've got 2 Mezukis that'll be banishing themselves to save your cards from the graveyard, and Plaguespreader who can banish himself after having special summoned himself, it warrants running a Burial from the Different Dimension to put all your zombies back in the graveyard. So it's a good card to have. And then now again, I still run a lot of graveyard support, so I'm still going to run 2 copies of Call the Haunted to get my stuff back on the field again. 2 copies of Mirror Force just because it's a good card to have. It's one of the only really good traps that didn't get hit, so you have to run 2. Then 1 Torrential because it's still got 1, and 1 Bottomless Trap Hole. Now, if you've been counting up the deck, you'll notice that this is only 39 cards, and the primary reason for that is the Pyramid Turtle going from 3 to 2. Now, it's been suggested, and I've been talking with the rest of the team, and it seems like this next format we're going to have a whole lot of traps to deal with. So like your D prisons, you might run into more Mirror Forces, because I run 2. Torrential is still going to be a thing, Bottomless is still going to be a thing. And if your Pyramid Turtle doesn't die by battle, you don't get the search. which is why you're still going to run 3 copies of Goblin Zombie, because if he just leaves the field, you still get the search. So running into Mirror Force doesn't hurt him as much. But with Pyramid Turtle, you need to kill him by battle. So I took one of them out. But to put the deck back at exactly 40, we've got a couple different options you can do that I've been testing out and I really like. So if you are absolutely diehard Pyramid Turtle fan, you can throw in a third Pyramid Turtle. But I've got a couple other cards that I think are pretty good too. If you run the field spell, maybe you want to put it at 3 or something like that, or just even running it at 2, you'll draw into this often enough. You can bring out a Red Eyes Zombie Dragon. His effect is pretty cool. When you've got the field spell on the field, your entire opponent's field becomes zombies. So if you can kill something with 24, you can essentially steal their monster from the graveyard, which is what I mentioned before. You don't need Monster Reborn to steal your opponent's monsters if you've got Zombie World on the field, because you have zombie monster effects that can do the same. If you don't run one more zombies, the cool thing about Zombie Master is that you can pitch a monster card to summon a zombie from your deck, or from your hand, sorry. Dang it, I said graveyard. Goodness, I can't even speak today. So essentially, you don't need to have zombies in the hand in order to use his effect. So it opens up the possibility of a whole bunch of other cards you can put in to just pitch with Zombie Master. And then when you've got Zombie World on the field, you can bring them back out using your Book of Life, because it gets your zombies out of the grave. And they become zombies with Zombie World. So if you're going up against a deck that uses a whole bunch of like seed monsters, you can throw in a Calibrator, just kind of something to do. Pitch it with Zombie Master, make it a zombie with the field spell, and then Book of Life it. Pretty good. And using that strategy, you can do the same thing with the Spell Canceller if you're going up against a lot of spell books at your locals. You can also throw in a White Horn Dragon for the same matchup. If you're going up against a person who you know uses a whole lot of traps, and you realize, hey, I'm in game 2, this kid uses all kinds of trap cards, you can throw in a Jinzo. Because again, you can just pitch him with Zombie Master, special him off of Book of Life, and then traps aren't a problem anymore. So, really good card to have. And also, because these guys are level 5 and 6, they only take 1 tribute. So if you've got a monster on the field and you haven't normaled yet, just throw these guys one down. It's not too bad. And then a kind of tech choice that I've enjoyed playing so far is Elector, Sovereign of Birds. If your opponent controls 2 cards of the same attribute, you can special summon him from your hand. And his other effect is really cool. Once per turn, you can target 1 card on the field and negate its effects for the rest of the turn. So if your opponent has a Stardust out there and you've got a Dark Hole in the hand, summon Elector, negate the effect of the Stardust, and then drop your Dark Hole. Your opponent can't use his Stardust effect to stop Dark Hole from going off, and so you effectively save the field. It's pretty cool. It's also a kind of pseudo-out to the Master Key Beetle Safe Zone lock. If you summon your Elector and you target Master Key Beetle, you can turn off its effects, and then if you also manage to get a Gemnite Pearl on the field, 26 gets over 25, you can kill the Master Key Beetle by battle. So at the end of the turn, unless your opponent wants to kill their Master Key Beetle, they're going to take care of Safe Zone for you. So it's a different option you can put in there. And there are a whole bunch of other just kind of useful cards that Elector can turn off for you, so I enjoy playing the card. And then one thing that I just think is hilarious, but for some reason this worked for me, is remember those Earthbound Immortal cards that no one plays because they're terrible and they require a field spell? We run 2 field spell that makes of monsters zombies in the graveyard. So if you want to, slap in an Earthbound Immortal, use that with your Foolish Burial, or pitch it with Zombie Master, whatever. Use it only when you want to or need to as kind of a game finishing thing, but because it becomes a zombie in the graveyard, if you have the field spell out, you can revive that guy off of Book of Life, because its effect doesn't say it can't be special summoned. So you can get out a really big beater that can attack your opponent directly from your graveyard, just because it's already a zombie. Now, my favorite Earthbound Immortal is Chaku Chalua here, the whale. Whenever he's in defense mode, your opponent can't enter their battle phase, which means that you don't need to have your Mirror Force down, because if they can't have battle phase, they can't attack. And you can burn your opponent essentially for 1200 every turn. Because of his effect, you can burn for half his defense while he's in defense mode, which is pretty cool. And then if you want to, you can just attack directly for 29, so it's kind of a problem for your opponent if you're late game. But I finally found a deck that could effectively use an Earthbound Immortal if you want to, so it's just kind of an option for you. But now to break into the extra deck, I'm still running 2 copies of Doomkaiser Dragon, because like I said before, with Monster Reborn gone, when your opponent tries to special summon him, or they can't special summon him off of Monster Reborn anymore, so they can't steal your zombies. But if you've got Zombie World on the field, you can special summon him and steal their cards out of the graveyard, because essentially they become zombies. So you get to steal their stuff here. So this card, if you have Zombie World on the field and you go into a Doomkaiser, essentially becomes a monster reborn for you and for your graveyard and your opponent's graveyard. So it's just kind of a good card to have. Next, got a new synchro here for you. This one is HTS Syhemoth. I have no idea what the HTS stand for, but he's got a pretty good effect. After a battle, you can choose to banish both him and your opponent's monster that it battled. So if you've got any kind of big thing that you can't get rid of somehow, you can just banish it at the end of the battle phase. Pretty good. And then the reason you run Pain Painter is Archfiend Zombie Skull. This thing prevents all your zombie monsters from being destroyed by card effects, which is fantastic because it turns Dark Hole and Torrential Tribute into a Regeki. Essentially only your opponent feels the effects. Really good. And because they can't be destroyed by card effects, they're going to have to be outdone in battle. So 25 isn't too terribly big, but not a lot of decks can easily get over that. And if you have an Endless Decay on the field, who could potentially have 4,000 attack, who also can't be destroyed by card effects, your opponent's going to have a lot of trouble. And then, because you're running enough level 6s, and you've got 3 tuners now, who are level 2, I still run a Crimson Blader, because it slows down a lot of decks and kind of hurts some strategies out there, and it's a pretty big beater as well, so it's a good card to play. Then again to the extra deck, I still one of Zenmaines, still one Leviair, then I've still got a Levolval Chain. Hopefully you've got this guy, the price is going up, that's annoying, but its effect is good enough if you want to run one. And then one Maestroke, one Photon Pappy, and the new card for me is a Master Key Beetle. If you have him on the field, you can use its effect to protect your field spell, so you don't have to worry about an MST destroying your field spell. So you can force all of your monsters to stay zombies, make your Earthbound immortal if you want to, or your opponent can't MST it to get their own monsters back, so that's kind of a good play. And then another thing we had to do to make enough room in the extra deck is I took out one of the Gem Knight Pearls, so we're just running 2 of those now. So now if you go into the loop, you can still make your Gem Knight Pearls, you can still make 2 of them, but you're going to have to go into your third kind of a tech card at the last spot, which is why you've got Key Beetle in there, because he's still a really good card to play. And then because you can still make a whole lot of level 4s really easily, I still run a Violon Disigma. Unfortunately, Shockmaster got banned. Whoever saw that coming, but it's not a thing anymore. So Disigma is your only level, or 3 level 4 monster. And then because you could still potentially have 2 Decay on the field, I've got 1 copy of Volcasaurus. So that rounds out the deck profile. That's all the changes that we made. I really enjoy playing zombies, and this new format helped him out a lot, so hopefully this answers some questions for you. As always, I'm always happy to answer your questions in the comments, so leave whatever questions you've got.
Okay. As always, like and subscribe.